to go was how it engaged you, but finding a million things to do along the way was where it hooked you. Skyrim wasn't perfect, but it did this pretty well. You could walk in any direction, it seemed, and find at least something interesting. Could have been a dungeon, a champion, a boss, a dragon, Daedric shrines, something there placed for you to find by an actual human being. I remember stumbling onto so many quests and things far beyond what occupied the spaces in between Skyrim. Croesus on top of that frosty mountain, Meridia's beacon, a lighthouse, and the Lost Expedition are just a few that come to mind. The world was large, but it was also dense, with logic to it. Things were put in places that actually made sense, and they were where they should be. Wood mills placed along rivers, mines placed in mountains, and bandit camps where you would likely to see them, which would be outside of town in the thickets. Again, it wasn't perfect, but the world was, all things considered, pretty compelling and exciting to explore. I would argue that Starfield does not have that satisfying world design nor immersive exploration, and for a game built in the sandbox style, it is a noteworthy misstep that I will be going into in detail. To illustrate my points, I'm going to just show you exactly what I saw the moments I landed down on Newton 3. The following footage was taken 75 hours into my first save file. This is Newton 3. Beautiful, it's rainy, and it's hazy, dotted with neon glow caps nestled atop bulbous rocks. Looks pretty cool, right? It's a perfect backdrop for a game designer, and you can imagine the hundreds of potential stories and characters and pieces of content you could place inside of it. Yet Starfield does not take advantage of this opportunity. Just for some context, leading up to this moment, I had been struggling to enjoy Starfield's exploration. I just found it very boring of planet hopping into these procedurally generated worlds because they didn't seem to provide enough immersive exploration the way Skyrim did, and its problems extend far beyond its scale. The basic gameplay loop of Starfield revolves around points of interest, which are the 3D map icons that pop up when you open your scanner. They range from caves to military bases to simple ponds or even rock structures.
Look what the cat brung in. And how can I help you, adventurer?
The first thing you do is open your scanner and check out where the points of interest are. Then you turn to them and you run. You run, you run, you run, and you run. Exploring worlds with map icons is something we're all very used to. It's perfectly fine. It helps guide players to meaningful content while reducing the frustrations of understanding what he or she should be doing. After all, without icons, a large portion of players would feel overwhelmed and be unsure of actually where to even go, so they can be a good thing. Skyrim had plenty of map icons, but the problem with Starfield is that it, to a fault, almost exclusively relies on these map icons. The worlds are otherwise very barren. After landing on over 100 planets, I can confidently say that there is next to no reason why you shouldn't be running to these map icons, because if you go off the beaten path and walk around in pretty much any direction, you will almost always find absolutely nothing. The truth is, the spaces connecting map icons in Starfield are empty.
They're empty.
Not kind of, sort of empty.
They are empty.
Unless
like
you
Mortal
find
2.
random wildlife on only
Like
50
Mortal 2.
planets.
Yep.
More successful games retain the map marker system while sprinkling in content between them. This system rewards the player that wants to step off the beaten path. It can be something very complex, like finding a politically charged mini-narrative that takes you 5 hours, found in The Witcher. Or you can stumble onto a town. Or it could be as simple as stashing an iconic item away in a dumpster in Cyberpunk like, Skippy. Other times, it's those moments of environmental storytelling that we all know and love. Something to show you that this place has been lived in, there's a depthness or a uniqueness to it, drawing the player in. Sometimes the best thing you can add into a game is something the player feels, not finds. And in all my time with Starfield, I can say I haven't found anything like this outside of some very basic things. An outpost with a man who threatened to kill me if I didn't leave his little cabin, or a ship with a small conversation with an AI computer. Nothing very complicated and nothing very expansive. And when you step back and look at Starfield in this capacity, the spaces in between only exist to connect the points of interest together. And they are very, very big empty spaces. So the general gameplay loop is just to land, scan for a POI, and just walk to it. Or if there's jack shit, then you just pack up, get back in your ship, and land in another spot and try again, which means another set of annoying loading screens. The problem with Starfield is that when you're on a planet, you can pretty much ignore everything around you while you run to these POIs. That is because Starfield is a huge landscape of procedurally generated nothingness. Barren landscapes of dirt and frozen
Cooking is a lifelong pursuit, and I see we share the same passion.
There's actually not very much to find. And in the process, it even misses the most important elements of immersive player exploration. Having the player select an icon to run to, but get distracted while running to it. This is why people like playing Skyrim. Sure, eventually you might find a river or a lake, but even if you did, it wouldn't matter because you can't really swim and most bodies of water are toxic and kill you. Yeah, you can stand next to it and take a photo, but I don't count photo mode as a replacement for gaming.
Anything at all. Anything at all. I despise photo mode. Photo mode was such a rip-off concept. They're like, you can use cameras now and take selfies. I don't need a selfie of my character. I've never been a screenshot person.
Mine from spacers.
I take screenshots like for memories to pretend like I am, but I don't care about screenshots, frankly.
A building, but nothing more and nothing less. No distractions, no unique gameplay, no real characters to find, and no world building for the most part. When the best part about your game are the views, then yeah, Houston, we have a problem here. The players of Starfield are then tethered to a string of POIs like puppets, and what results is a lack of any immersive exploration, and in turn, player freedom. And after a while, it gets really old.
Cooking is a lifelong pursuit, and I see we share the same passion.
Because unless you build an outpost, you can't even catalog the planets you visit. You have to, somehow, some way, figure out that the white glow dots on your star map are systems you've already been to, and then flick through a bunch of menus just so you could check out each individual planet manually. There should have been a catalog of places the player has visited. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer. The points of interest are also copy-pasted among the star system, which is another ugly side effect.
Cooking is a lifelong pursuit, and I see we share the same passion.
The planets. Basically, Starfield's POI layouts are exactly the same no matter what planet you visit. And honestly, I can't even believe this is a thing. I mean, how did a AAA game get away with doing this? You could be halfway across the galaxy and find the exact same cave or outpost with the same guards and even the same items placed in the same places. I, for one, recall many times fighting inside this exact layout on a dozen different planets. But it doesn't take 12 times to break immersion. Even the second time I saw this facility, it shattered it instantly. This might be one of the laziest things I've ever seen, and a direct reason why the game should never have been designed strictly with procedural generation. So you can imagine my surprise when I landed on Newton 3, and I did find something very interesting. Invisible crabs. Well, not just invisible crabs. Invisible mean crabs hunting invisible fat crabs. Again, leading up to this point, I found very little, if any, natural world building in Starfield. And world building provides the reason to explore. Again, this is what Skyrim did so well. So, predators and prey. Cloaking. This is exciting. It piqued my interest. I began to walk around the planets and saw several more fat creatures die to the mean ones. I wondered what other strange things I would discover on Newton 3. So I spent 2 hours running around this planet, hunting for more unexpected treats and treasures, and I would ultimately find absolutely nothing. No other beings, no other biomes.
Mortal 2. It's the Mortal 2 problem. Absolutely nothing. Just complete, like, really wonderful world. Nothing there. There's a new word in the scene for it, but I can't remember what it is. It's like, oh god, there's a hilarious phrase for this now, but I can't think of what they call it on Reddit. I can't think of it.
Full of copy-pasted POIs that I had already seen, and a handful of invisible.
Oh, I wanted to buy spices. I forgot.
The invisible crabs of Newton 3 had to be part of something greater. This is a Bethesda game, so exploration couldn't be this unsatisfying. It couldn't just be an endless loop of cycling through menus and menus and menus, sitting through a cacophony of irritating loading screens only to land on a mystery planet, scan, spin around, and find so few reasons to actually explore it. Starfield could not be this shallow. Determined, Vasco and I packed up and we headed for Newton's other planets, hoping to find at least one more planet that felt immersive in the way that I wanted. But I guess I shouldn't have had the hope. Newton 2 was a snowy world, eerily similar to the cold places I had visited in the system next door. A starship landed on its moon, and I killed the Starborn. I had done this on many planets by now. These enemies, without a doubt, give you the best fights in this game, but this is the only capacity that you will see them outside of temples or ship fighting. I think Starborn and Starfield are very underutilized, at least for gameplay. Furthermore, Starfield has a clear lack of enemies. You either fight spacers, robots, or four-legged creatures which have virtually no distinction between them gameplay-wise. You can find Terramorphs if you're doing the UC quest line, which also, again, don't have any unique AI to them though. All the gameplay in Starfield is very homogeneous. Spacers shoot you until they're critically injured and
homogeneous, you fucking ChatGPT. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna
then run for the hills every single time. And the creatures run straight at you and try
that comment was fairly homogeneous.
to hit you with their claws, and if they connect, you get stunned and pushed back. It is not a very fun gameplay mechanic in the slightest. So after Newton 2, we moved on to its first moon, and despite it looking nice, there was nothing to see or do outside of yet again another story.
Something I dislike about YouTube videos is occasionally I'm like, oh man, this guy is so nerdy. He wrote such a good script. And then I realized that it's ChatGPT who wrote the script. And he's mispronouncing the words. And he's using words that he doesn't know how to pronounce or even understand, I don't think. And it creates this uncanny valley situation where I previously believed that the person was smart. Oops, I went the wrong way out of Goldshire. I previously believed that the person was like as smart or even maybe more intelligent than me. And then they open their mouth and say something like homogeneous, which completely dispels it's like the Wizard of Oz or something. You immediately, the image of the Wizard of Oz that you had in your mind was like, oh, it's a pretty good nerd who's really intelligent, has a lot of good things to say. And then they say something like homogeneous, which immediately dispels this notion that they wrote their script, because they wouldn't be misusing the word that they mispronounced if they even knew what the word meant or how to pronounce it. And you realize that he himself did not write this script, only the concepts of it. And it was perfected by some AI machine. And it used the word in like as a simile or a homonym to enrich the script. But he didn't know how to pronounce the word. And that dispels this notion that he even should be using the word, much less wrote the script, or is maybe even somebody that I should look up to that much. Because to me, the word homogeneous is like maybe a 9th grade level word. Usually you'll hear about it when you first take a chemistry class. But this nerd that I'm supposed to respect because of the script that he wrote, you know, there's a lot of faking going on here and a lot of machine-assisted delivery that breaks the immersion for me. Now, normally I would bail out from the video if I wasn't on stream, and I would have a bad taste in my mouth and be like, yeah, this guy's pretending to be a nerd. A good nerd never would have said homogeneous. Now, let's go make sure I'm correct, you know, and just make sure he's not right, but I'm fairly sure I'm correct. So let's just go make sure. Pronounce homogeneous. Right?
Homogeneous.
I'm wrong.
Homogeneous.
Now, I've never heard this pronunciation. Yeah, is it pronounced homogeneous, as its roots with the English genus is pronounced as homogeneous? No way. I was wrong. I've never heard it said that way. because you would normally say homogenized, or homogenized means like blended, and or well, maybe I'm even wrong about that. I don't even know technically what the word means. Then maybe I'm the wrong one who's wrong. I never have heard the word homogeneous before. That sounds wrong to me for some reason. But I'm wrong. I admit it. I'm wrong. I shouldn't have opened my mouth. But at least we went and found out I was wrong. Yeah, what's the difference here? It should be pronounced with 5 dishomogeneous. Oh! Oh, no. So he meant homogeneous. Despite their selling, but he said homogeneous, which is not the word. No, I caught it. I did correct it right. Even professional journalists would screw up on this, though, so I'm being too harsh on him. And I think they're right about this. Anybody can screw up on this, but I've never heard it said homogeneous. Now, homogeneous would be a word I would use to describe a society of people. Homogeneous is a word I would describe as a homogeneous is a pronoun. Homogeneous is a pronoun. Homogeneous is a descriptor or adjective. And so homogeneous is kind of like everything's the same. It's all blended. It's like gray a little bit. It's all basically the same, right? Milk, and water can become fairly homogeneous because they're like, I mean, water is milk. Milk is water. It's the same thing, really. So, it's like milk with, calcium. It's water with calcium. So, and cream. And homogeneous pronounced, or no, what does homogeneous mean? Homogeneous is an outdated biological term that refers to organs or body tissues with genetic similarities. Yeah, and it is an outdated biological term. Today, most scientific writers would use the more recent term homologous. Now, this word I've always struggled with the pronunciation of, but I thought it was homologous. But let's go see. Pronounce. I want to see the pronounce.
Homologous.
Homologous. I had it wrong. Homologous. Yeah, homologous. And pronunciation doesn't really matter too much, and being a Nazi about it isn't something I wanted to be. But it was like a non-professional person's mangling of a word that, now, how he used it. You might run across the word homogeneous. Homogeneous is an older word that was professional, but you wouldn't hear it very much anymore. And I'm the one who's wrong. Now, what does homogeneous mean? It's an adjective. It means having similar or uniform characteristics. I was the one who was wrong. I take it all back. He was absolutely fine. We're good. And I'm sorry I had an issue with him. I stand corrected. This one's tricky. I've never heard anybody use the word homogeneous before. But he actually used it correctly because of the ChatGPT, I think. Because most times I've ever heard anybody talk about one in the sameness with gaming or coding or humans or features or characteristics, you will hear the word homogeneous. You would never hear the word homogeneous in this particular... I mean, you would. homogeneous is a word I've never heard used in a professional setting. It should be pronounced homogeneous. Yeah. It's like almost like it's like homogeneous, like a homogeneous. The associated noun for homogeneous is homogeneity, and its verb is homogenize. Now, homogenize, you will likely have seen milk labels advertising the product as homogenized. Homogeneous also has an antonym, heterogeneous, that means having dissimilar characteristics. So, like, absolutely different. These words have different pronunciations. So pronouncing each word correctly is key to using your correct word in your writing. How to pronounce homogeneous. The pronunciation of homogeneous, or homogeneous, homogeneous, and there's homogeneous. I can't believe his usage was correct because I've never heard a writer or anybody else ever use this word. I've only ever heard homogeneous. But just because homogeneous is easier to say doesn't make it the correct usage. But apparently I'm the wrong, unless you're a 19th century biologist, you should not use the word homogeneous at all, basically. It's like homologous. Scientists are more likely to use the word homologous in place of this archaic term. So homologous, okay, homologous. And the proper word is homologous. One of the reasons I tripped on it is the word usage in and of itself is incorrect, I think. And it tripped up the editor in me a bunch. And while he was right in the usage and right in the pronunciation, I believe the correct word now is homologous, though. And it's weird because he used like the weirdest usage of a word I've heard in a long time, because I've never in my life heard homogeneous used as homogeneous like he did. I've never heard the word before, I don't think even. Homogeneous is a common word, as well as homogenized. You hear it a lot, having to do with modern culture, where everybody just gray areas everything, and everything's Marvel now. Marvel is very homogeneous. But in modern culture, you would never hear somebody say Marvel is homogeneous. You would hear somebody say Marvel has become very homogenized. And almost all of them are incorrect, actually, except for homologous is the actual scientific term for what he means. It means coding that is not homologous. The coding in Starfield when it comes to the mobs is homologous, is the actual correct word. And I'm sorry I tripped on it so much. But I mean, this stuff is where I live and breathe. I mean, I was trained as an editor. I went to school for a lit major, literature. And I don't like tripping up on words if I didn't feel that, that the correct usage was important. And I don't think either of our usages were correct. When we get down to it, homologous is the actual word that he should have used. I tripped on him because homogeneous is a word you almost never, ever, ever hear. It's an archaic word that wouldn't have been used in this pop culture reference to a modern video game. You're going to hear it in 19th century chemistry. It's a really, really archaic word. And it tripped me up because now had he said homologous, I would have been like, ooh, fancy word, nice. And I would have been impressed with the correct usage of the word. But his usage was wrong. Me tripping on him was wrong. And neither one of us dropped the right word either. And so now I know the difference. I doubt he does, but I know the difference now. I know what to say. So when something in video games is too similar, they are homologous. is the actual technical scientific coding word for it. Homologous and homogeneous and homogeneous are actually extremely while correct. Now homogeneous is the correct usage of the word that the ChatGPT's written script provided. It is the correct usage of the word. It is not the proper word. The proper word is homologous. And so notice that I tripped, and while I was wrong, what I was tripping about was wrong, he still misused the word, and I was right to trip on it, and I do have some validation in that. And I don't like these shitty grammar Nazi arguments, but that was such a weird, archaic, fancy word that he comes across as either, and that's why I tripped on it, right? He comes across as either a scientist, which I don't believe a scientist would ever do a video about Starfield. You know, maybe, but I kind of doubt it. Maybe about the stars and how they're represented or something like that. It's not going to be like some video about how good is Starfield. No scientist is ever going to do a video about how good is Starfield. Not really. Maybe, but it's kind of unlikely, right? Not a true scientist. And so, like, you kind of trip up over the archaic misusage because the script was written partially by ChatGPT and improved by it. Now the AI used the right word, but not really in this usage. You would never use homogeneous over homologous. And you will hear the word homologous, and I've heard it a lot before. I just didn't remember it. I didn't remember what the pronunciation was. And so, you know, the Latin is important here. The Latin mattered here. Homogeneous isn't a word you'll almost ever hear. Almost ever. I tripped on it, and I should have. It's not a common word. You know, it was far beyond his vocabulary. It was far beyond my vocabulary, and I scored high on the SAT. You know? That word, this was an interesting one that I tripped up on. Tolkien would have liked this conversation. Or, well, at least I would like to believe that he would. Because he was a linguist who never, ever would have used the word homogeneous. Never, never. It's not the correct usage of it. It's not the right time to use it. Homogeneous, you would hear when you were studying about basic chemistry of how cow's milk is pasteurized. If you were learning about Louis Pasteur. That's the one proper time. How he used it was proper, but the only time you would ever hear it used properly by a scientist in the right way would be homogeneous, when you would be talking about pasteurization of milk. You know, it's not this word that he should use to describe the one and the sameness or homologousness of Starfield. Homologous is the actual correct usage of the word. I don't like that he swung at it and missed. I don't like that I tripped on it. I was too mean about it. When it came to it, but he was wrong. Homologous is not a word you'll hear very often, so I shouldn't trip on him over that. And I mean, I'm sorry, but these are crazy, like, high vocabulary words. But I mean, that's where my skill set lies. You know, that is where, like, I some of my skill set, anyways. So, you know, I'm sorry I tripped on it for so long, but that one was a struggle. It was a struggle for him, I think. And he said it right, and he used it right, and he double checked himself with the ChatGPT like he should have, and he was all right. And I'm sorry I tripped on him. He was okay. He used it correctly. So I have no argument here. In a debate, I would have lost. So, you know, more power to him. I retract all of it. But I mean, it was a misusage. It was a misusage in modern vernacular. In modern vernacular, you would never say homogeneous. It's just not right. It's not. It doesn't fit the. It's not. It doesn't fit the context of the content. You know. It doesn't fit. That, like, you would talk about homogeneous when it would come to, like, how milk looks the same. All milks look the same, kind of. Like skim milk, 2%. A proper use of homogeneous would be most milk is homogeneous because it is basically calcium and water. That's the correct use of homogeneous. Not, oh, the mobs in Starfield are homogeneous. That is the incorrect usage of the word. Homologous would have been the big fancy pants nerd word if you're going to take the swing. I like that he took the swung, and I think he's ambitious, and I like that he didn't dumb it down. He pronounced it correctly when a lot of other people wouldn't have. He took the swing, and I liked it, and I actually liked it. I tripped on it. I should put a thing in his chat about how I tripped up on his word of the usage of the word homogeneous. It had to do like a half an hour thing on my stream about it, and then tell him that the proper usage of the word is actually homologous. But like, I don't think I'm not sure this particular person would probably appreciate that conversation or even care. So whatever. I don't need to grammar Nazi him. He wasn't wrong. So, more power to him. I liked that he was right. I liked that the ChatGPT was right, because it implies that the AI is worth its salt, you know? The AI was worth its salt. They wrote it correctly. I mean, it wrote the word correctly in a scientific way where you could not say that the word was wrong. But in the popular vernacular, homogeneous is not a word you would ever hear even in normal, or even in unnormal, like scientific, like not unnormal, but like more rare situations, like discussions of scientific stuff of scientific nature. That would be, you know, it would be very weird to hear the word homogeneous, and his usage of it was not correct. So, but we can't trip on him because in the grammar usage of it, he was fine. It is not a grammatical error to use a homogeneous as he used it. So I can't invalidate what he said. But I can trip on him for points on style. Homologous was the proper word.
I saw a cave on Newton.
He's a smart man. I like him. I like the conversation that he engendered. It's good. But I mean, it's also like it was an incorrect usage of the word in a way that I felt was sort of ambitious and a little bit fakey and a little bit fake it to make it. Like he's adding in fancy words into his script to make himself seem a little bit more palatable to the truly intelligent people on this in this world, when he would never actually use the word correctly. And it sucked that it came across that way, but it did come across that way. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to disparage him. He did not use it incorrectly, but he did somehow. You know,
I know for a fact I've already been in this.
And I would argue with him drunk. I'd have a beer with him and be like, I'd like to argue with you. I'd like to have a scientific Stanford conversation about your use of the word homogeneous. And I'd like to have a conversation with the streamer himself about it. And if I ever meet him at a TwitchCon or something like that, I'll bring it up. Because I'll be like, you used the word homogeneous one time. And I tripped about it on my stream for half an hour because it was the correct usage. It was a corrected usage of the word, just not in the parlance of our times. So stylistically, it was a bad word to use. This smacks of AI. It smacked of AI. It doesn't smack of his own intelligence. It smacks of AI, and it bothered me, and I tripped on it. And I think most times I would bail out from the video right here, too. But at that point, I feel I would be disrespectful, so I won't.
Some purple landscape.
I don't like it when nerds pretend. You know what I'm saying? It's an old feeble of mine. Like, I've been a heroin junkie and an amphetamine junkie. I've come close to running prostitution circles and being a kingpin and stuff. I've been a fat gamer most of my life. I've had a useless life, kind of. And I'll be the first one to say a very honest person about most of my shortcomings and all this. But something you couldn't say about me was faking the intelligence. That's not something I've ever been guilty of. And I see a lot of these nerds on YouTube do it. And they're hiding behind ChatGPT. And it bothers me at a core level. And I'll call you on it almost every single time. Now, was he wrong? No. So I should shut the fuck up.
5B.
It's kind of like math. It's like he came to the equation. He came to the proper number at the other side of the equal sign, right? So I can't trip on him, but he didn't show his work. It's the exact same thing. Remember in school when they were like, you don't really know this, you didn't show your work, right? He didn't show the work of understanding what the word meant. I had to go do it myself to understand what it meant. And so it's annoying to me. Had he done the work to go look at the proper usage of the word that ChatGPT suggested he use, like fucking he would have tripped on it and said and found that homologous was actually the correct usage. And now I don't like how far we went down the rabbit hole. But I see this shit all the time, every day. One of the reasons I like Some Ordinary Gamers and Charlie, you know, Moist Critical so much is I don't really catch them engaging in these fake it to make it ChatGPT scripts. I think they're actually engaging in full-blown intelligent conversation in real time. They aren't scripting. I mean, they're scripting, but they're not like they're scripting to avoid getting canceled. They're not scripting to make the content better at all. Yeah, I gotta get back west. And something should be said. It smacks of wannabe. It smacks of hack. It breaks the immersion. It breaks the uncanny valley where you really want to believe that this person might somehow be better at this than you, or might be more knowledgeable than you in the just in general, or might have a higher IQ than you, or represent maybe a nerd culture that might be a little bit more elevated intellectually than you. But then you find them choking on ChatGPT scripts, mispronouncing words horribly, because some of them are acting. Some of them didn't write treatises and papers in college, and some of them are not intelligentsia. They're not. They shouldn't represent nerds. Some of them. Now this guy should. I have no issue with this guy. I mean, he was right. Honestly, I was the one who was wrong, not him. So, like, this guy should. But I catch some of these other nerds. Like, they fancy themselves nerds, and they have good IQs. But they don't have the execution. Stephen Hawking would have tripped on the word. He would have said, that is an incorrect usage of the word. And he would have been bothered by it. Just like I was. And it stinks of faker. It stinks of ChatGPT script. And it bothers me. And that's all. I've repeated it like 7 times now. But it's hard to get the core concept across in a way. Jock Hughes, bad, hacky, fake ChatGPT script. Your concepts are solid. The script is bot written in a way where it literally broke my immersion. Okay? That's all I have to say.
Didn't change anything about the gameplay. In fact, the environmental hazard system in Starfield is not fleshed out in any way. Why have a resistance stat for armor when it doesn't even matter anyway? All of the survivor elements are extremely underbaked. Another ship with Starborn on 5C, and a mining outpost too, the one that I had seen many, many times before. After visiting Newton's entire system, I counted up a total of 50 loading screens, 5 fights,
and a partridge in a loading screen. On the first day of Starfield, I got 50 loading screens. 45 city screens, 38 combat screens, 17 map screens, and a partridge in a loading screen. On the second day of Starfield, I lost an 18-hour playthrough. Couldn't get a new starship, couldn't put guns on my starship. 47 loading screens still, and a partridge in a loading screen.
As a system has anything unique going on, and therefore is worth visiting at all. Starfield remains stretched too thin for my liking. I could have added up all the encounters I had within this system and placed them on a single planet, and I would have had more organic exploration. It might not have been that.
I really have a serious issue with what he's saying, kind of, because he's kind of saying that, why did you bother? Why did you even bother? And I don't like that attitude. I don't mind that Bethesda took a swing with Starfield. I think they should have bothered, and I think it is a fake hacky game, but it's a good fake hacky game. And I think in 5 years we'll see, you know? So there we are, okay? And I think saying, why did you bother doing more than one planet, is a pessimistic, pragmatic way of sort of doubting Thomasing all creative efforts. If you couldn't make your one creative, or so if you couldn't make your 1,000 creative efforts as good as one creative effort, why did you bother the 1,000 creative efforts? Now, logic-wise, he's not wrong. But morale-wise, only a non-artist, non-creative would ever say something like that. He doesn't appreciate what it takes to take the shot. And I don't think he writes his own script. I think he writes his own scripts, but he doesn't write them. I think he provides bullet points, right? And his bullet points make him an intelligent person. I mark him as an extremely intelligent person. But the attitude of why did you bother is not a constructive one when it comes to creatives. If your argument about the movie Aliens was the other 4 Aliens movies weren't as good as Aliens, why did you bother making the other 4 Aliens movies? You wouldn't have had Aliens 1 or Alien 3 or Alien Isolation or whatever, Alien Resurrection or whatever it is, right? All good, all sort of good action horror movies in their own right. Despite being sort of cheesy and a little bit B-movie, except for the first one. The attitude of why did you bother with any other, why did you bother with all the other planets, is not a constructive one when it comes to morale. If you just poo-poo all artists because they bothered trying to make the Sistine Chapel, we wouldn't have the Sistine Chapel. So I dislike his non-pragmatist, it's pragmatist, but it's very negative, very, 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 very glass half empty point of view. Why did you bother with 1,000 planets if you can't get one right? And I agree with him, and logically his logic's sound, but it's also like if you've never made an album or wrote a book or wrote a song or actually created something, or maybe even given birth might qualify, created something beautiful, right? I would say this video qualifies for him. So I would say he does know how to make something beautiful. I would say this video is beautiful. I think he did well here. So he does qualify. He is an artist. He has made something beautiful here with this video. I will validate him, right? But if you were to hit every artist with the attitude of why if you can't make one good painting, why did you bother making the 1,000 that you painted throughout your lifetime? And I dislike this negative outlook on art. Art is entirely swing and miss, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I forget who wrote that, but yeah, is it Voltaire? I think beauty is in the eye of the beholder is a really good quote, but I don't know who to cite it to, and I dislike that I used it without being able to cite the creator. Beauty is truth. Truth is beauty, or beauty is in the eye of the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? I'm thinking of all our cliches having to do with beauty, right? If your attitude is why attempt to make 1,000 paintings when you can't make one right, you would never be a good artist, which is one of the things that struggles. It breaks the immersion for me on the video. If he's doubting Thomasing artists, it makes me wonder if I should support his art. You understand how that's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy? I'm seeing 221,000 views and 8,000 likes, which is really good. I like that. Who wrote... Who said beauty is in the eye? Margaret Wolfe Hungerford. Never heard of her. Margaret Wolfe Hungerford is widely accredited with coining the saying... So I got a tiger aggro here. Widely credited with saying... with coining the saying in its current form, Hungerford wrote many books, often under the pseudonym... The Duchess. Now, the Duchess I've heard of before. In the 1878 novel Molly Bond, there's the line, "It is an old axiom and well said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder," right? So what you might think is a polished turd might be someone else's fucking Mona Lisa. And so to just say, if you couldn't get the fun of one planet right, why did you do 1,000? Logically, he's right, and I get the point he's trying to make, but it's a bad attitude to have to say that the artist shouldn't take the shot at the 1,000 planets. Obviously, they failed, but at least they took the shot. Only a non-contender would have the attitude of, oh, they shouldn't have taken the shot, or why did you bother? I've never, ever in my life ever found myself asking the question, why did you bother, when it comes to art or art form, right? I've never found myself asking that question of an artist before. I've never had to question an artist in any art form ever, why they bothered to do what they did. It's just not a question that's ever come up for me. Why did you bother making art? Is not to me a valid question, because anything can be beautiful to anyone. I guarantee you there is a 9-year-old out there who got their hands on Starfield, who believes that it is the most beautiful piece of art that has ever existed in the lexicon of man. I guarantee you this. I would stake my life on it. I bet all my family's money. I would stake that bet right now. There is a 9-year-old somewhere on this planet who believes that Starfield is fundamentally the most beautiful work of artistic creation ever conceived of by man. And this is that whole beauty is in the eye of the beholder thing. And even some of the games media were kind of indicating that sort of thing, like Starfield might be one of the most beautiful games ever made. Yeah, they're right. They're not wrong when they say this. So frame rate, it wasn't good, but the graphics were great. Some of them anyways. But so this thing about why did you bother? I find that to be a Philistine incel attitude. It's a doubting Thomas, negative Nelly attitude. Why did you bother? I wouldn't ever ask an artist that. That is frankly a noob question. Because they are artists. They took the swing. Just because you didn't like their version of Mona Lisa doesn't make it any less art. And asking them why they bothered is frankly really kind of annoying to me.
Because really, Starfield is a game of repetition and nothing is handcrafted. But at least it would have been...
Nothing is handcrafted. Do you really believe that?
However, the solution is not...
Do you really believe that a robot made Starfield? That it wasn't entirely handcrafted? I say procedurally, the mobs are procedural, the planets are procedural, but none of the artwork is. None of it. So artwork-wise is what he's talking about. That's where we're going to confine what I'm saying to. The art in Starfield is entirely handcrafted. Entirely. It might be in CGI on a fucking Wacom tablet, but it's still an artist making art. And this attitude of, anyways, I think I've said my piece here about that.
Make the game more immersive. And in a word, make it more dense. If we were to simply add 50 POIs to every planet, it wouldn't make the game any more dense. It would simply transform Starfield into Far Cry. Being bloated comes with some terrible side effects.
Bear with me just a second, guys. I've got a phone call.
The Witcher 3's map is a terrible mess of icons, but people love it because the world is built with
Hello.
care. outstanding side stories and
please
content
bear
can be
with
found
me just
everywhere, and the
5
design of the
seconds here.
continents were absolutely packed with detail.
I'm sorry,
each
I've
made
got
a
7
component.
things going at once,
Another great
and
example of
I've got to kind of wind them all back down again before I can safely not lose many, many hours of work. There we are. I'm with you. What's up? No, I'm completely free, and I'm muted and all that. We're good. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I'm back. I didn't mean to make you wait that long. I didn't know I was going to have such a long conversation. I've got a doctor's appointment in the morning with my PCP, and my pipes are frozen. Well, they're not frozen. They're just shut off so they don't get frozen right now because we've been below freezing for like 3 days or something like that. And so now, is this Hunter skinning? He's not. Nice. And this is some money right here. And so I thought I was going to be up late tonight, but I will be concluding here in an hour and 40 minutes, significantly earlier than I normally would, because at least this time I had some warning and stuff. But my family forgets to warn me when I've got some appointment that's been that I've been waiting for like 2 months, you know, and one of the government's requirements for my disability was my mother. My mother is my help proxy, and by law she is my help proxy, and the government has appointed her so. And so it is her job. It is literally like her job in the government's eyes to schedule my appointments and tell me when they're happening. And she does so, but she forgets because she is old until the day of. And nobody remembers because it's 2 months, 2 months of waiting to see a doctor these days, and because of COVID and all this. So now I have to be up at 8 or no, like 7:50 in the morning, and it's currently 6:20. And I usually get about 10 hours of sleep because they have me on strong sleeping pills. So if I want to be up and rested at 8 in the morning so I can do a stream and still do the doctor's appointment in my whole day before Season of Discovery, which is at 1 p.m. or what is it? It's either 1 or 2 p.m. I forget. Season of Discovery is let's go look at home. Season of Discovery hits 1 p.m. tomorrow for my time. I'm in PST. So I don't live far from Irvine, actually. It's cool. I don't live far from Irvine. WoW is a good game for where I live. So what was I going to say? Oh, that is a nasty sound of some kind of caster mob. Yeah. Let's kill him. Please don't sleep me. Don't sleep me. Okay, run the avalanche. Oh, that hurt him. Look, he's dead already. 193 chunked him for his entire thing. He's too weak. Yeah, you're too weak. Oh, no, he paid. He was EP. Hell yeah. TW won't even give you XP. So doing the math on that, if I want to be up at 8 a.m., no, 7:30 a.m., to take a shower in my parents' house because my pipes are shut off so that we don't incur pipe damage like we did last year or the year before. I think it was the year before, actually. So I had to take a shower up at the main house, and that means leaving earlier, like 7:30 in the morning. And wait, was it? Shit, what time was this appointment? It was like 9:40. So we'll leave here at 9, and I'll need to go up there to shower at 8:30. So that's later than I thought. So 10 hours would be 10:30. I have some time. Never mind. I've got some time. I can pretty much finish up most of this shift. It will be an hour shorter than usual, but I do have some nice leeway here. And that's later than I'm going to bed anyways. So hells yeah, maybe I'll stick around for a couple of hours. Sorry, I bumped my camera when I was on the phone. There we are. So okay, we're getting back to it. I'm a bit tired because I'm hungover, but I'm definitely here mentally. Yeah, so I forget what we were talking about, but what
was Dogtown in Phantom Liberty. Dogtown is a very small space, but is also very dense. And remember, density is not dependent on scale.
Yeah, the whole like Negative Nelly thing about art and taking the shot. They filled 1,000 planets because it's ambition. And it's good for artists to be ambitious, especially video game developers. It's good for them, Greed is bad, but ambition is good. It's like to be the best, really. And so they say 1,000 planets because honestly, it takes that kind of number to impress the TikTok generation. It's the same sort of clickbait, false advertising on fucking thumbnails that you see on YouTube. He wasn't gonna provide 1,000 planets worth of gameplay. That was never gonna happen. We've never had that in any game except for EVE Online. I don't know how many systems are in EVE, but I believe it's like 3,700 or something like that. And each and every one of them, you could spend the rest of your life. There's enough content in each and every system that you would never even need to jump if you didn't want to. And so, yeah, the depth is there. The depth is there in each and every one of those systems. Some of them are so different that you could live a whole lifetime there like wormholes. So,
Dogtown is crammed.
Only one game has had the kind of depth that Bethesda lied about, because they have to clickbait their title with the TikTok generation saying 1,000 planets, or they can't reach sales figures. And we don't blame them. I don't blame them for this. I blame them for it because it's sort of false advertising. The depth of 1,000 planets isn't there, but the 1,000 planets are there. And I didn't need 1,000 planets worth of, content out of Starfield, though it would be nice. What I do believe, though, is Starfield cannot be successful unless they step with some kind of crazy big claim like that. I don't believe they can be successful with the TikTok generation. And they want 9-year-olds to play their game. They do. So they're going to say the things that get the 9-year-olds' attention. Like 1,000 planets. Dad, I heard Starfield has 1,000 planets. And he goes, yeah, Nick, I heard. I can't wait to explore 1,000 planets, And you can tell it blows the mind of both the dad and the son. And mom just rolls her eyes because she's thinking about Kim Kardashian or whatever. So she, it's kind of funny. But they're on their road trip, and young Nick goes, Dad, 1,000 planets, and he goes, I know, son, I know. And that's why they said it. It doesn't need to be true. It's the TikTok generation lives in clickbait lie reality. Unfortunately. It's true, but I wish it wasn't, but it is true.
Crazy amounts of
they cannot succeed unless they say 1,000 planets.
Building, lots of visual flair, attitude, crime, and cool things to find. But most importantly, every pocket...
So now, this is a clickbait title, The Disappointment of Starfield, in particular because if we go to Starfield PC Metacritic, you're going to see some wishy-washy score. It going to be real low, real low. Oh no, look. This game has a stellar fucking rating. Stellar. It shouldn't. And even with the user score, you see, like the world erred on the side like Skycat did. It said that it was like between a 7 and a 9.2. And so this title is just as clickbait. Like in reality, it is clickbait. This title of his, The Disappointment of Starfield, it doesn't gel with even the user score on Metacritic, So this is clickbait, far worse than the 1,000 planets that Bethesda did supply with zero content. And so it's hypocritical of him to say that it's like a lie or, it's sort of weird because this clickbait title is far more false than like them saying there's 1,000 planets, but there's just nothing to do on the 1,000 planets.
The thing Starfield does not understand is that quantity does not make a game good. Quality does.
That jetpack is a fucking embarrassment. I have played Super Nintendo games like Rocket Knight Adventures that had a better fucking jetpack than this shit. Super Mario World's cape was better than this piece of shit jetpack. And I'll fucking say right to Todd's fucking liar face. This piece of shit jetpack was frankly an industry fucking disaster. You guys ever been a Tribes addict? Because I was a Tribes addict. I played Tribes Ascend on the PS2. Tribes Ascend, right? Which was the best jetpack game ever made. Came around 15 years before Starfield on the PlayStation 2. And it was so far superior to Starfield's fucking jetpack that it is a fucking industry embarrassment. And I'll say it right to Todd's face, and I'll play this video when I say it. Fucking sad, frankly. Fucking sad. Look at this. And now look at this. And I doubt any of these nerds even bring it up even once. You want to know what video I want to make about Starfield? Fucking jetpack.
That kind of quality.
Look at this piece of shit jetpack. Barely gets anything done.
Importantly, every
at all.
has a unique vibe to it. The thing Starfield does not.
Okay, here we go. He starts using here in a minute, right? Here we go. Oh, good. Oh, good. He got about 13 feet off the ground. Yeah. And it costs his entire fucking bar. And he has no forward momentum. I'm talking 0, not more than you would have doing a normal jump on the ground. So it's really only up, not forward, right? This was an industry fucking disaster debacle of a fuck up. That jetpack, and you want to know what I'll say on my Starfield video? There you go. After being a Tribes addict for fucking 5 years or something like that, I'm sorry, but I've seen better places. Honestly, I think Tribes was better. This Tribes Ascend was better than Starfield, frankly. It had more sci-fi, more depth, and more gunplay, more real, like genuine depth than anything Starfield did. And I'm sorry, but you know, you can sink your teeth into Tribes Ascend the way you can sink your teeth into Halo 3 or Halo 2 or Halo 1. It's that deep and that good of a game. And for them to outdo you, a game that cost $100 premium in 2023, for Tribes Ascend to outdo you on the PlayStation 2 is frankly fucking sad, and that jetpack should have like 10,000 of its own videos. That fucking jetpack is an industry fucking embarrassment. Makes me angry when I see it. Like games from 15 years ago where we're delivering way fucking better. Way. This is DMCA maybe, so whatever, I'm just gonna get off it. Tri-Street Rivals official gameplay from IGN. They won't DMCA me. So here we go. Look at that shit. That felt good like Rust. You know? Oh yeah. This game was so far superior to Starfield from PlayStation 2. Fucking sad. Fucking sad. It was a deeper RPG too. Deeper. It had the system of Planet Side, you know. I'm sorry, but it did. It just was just a far superior game in every way. And so I'm sorry, but I've just seen better. Let's do some more of it so you understand how really shallow Starfield was. And really, my one and only complaint with Starfield is that jetpack. You fix the jetpack and you fix the game. All that bullshit travel and all that loading screen bullshit, all fixes with a good jetpack. Not the loading screen shit, but the necessity for it. All the ship stuff and all the ship travel that you have to do just because the travel sucks so much dick because the jetpacks suck so much dick. The jetpack was the one thing that they needed to get right. Right? So here's another game that got the jetpack way the fuck better. You know what I'm saying? And of course, this was the game that Starfield was most directly ripping off. No Man's Sky jetpack is superior. You know what I'm saying? How to super jetpack jump, right? There it is. Now, the jetpack isn't that much better than Starfield, but it's fucking better.
Oh my God, it's so
fucking good. Better. Full flight.
Welcome back to No Man's Sky, everyone. Jason here, and holy cow, there is an amazing thing that just...
Thank you, Jason Plays, for the excellent content for my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel. Thank you, IGN, for the excellent content for my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel. Thank you, the original Tribes video, whatever that one was. Can we find it? Nope, you lost it for me, so I'll have to go back. Great job at being YouTube. Can you even get a history right? Here we go. This one. Subscribe. There we go, and we are good. So then we're getting off Tribes. We're done with Tribes. Let's take a look at what breaking the No Man's Sky jetpack actually looks like, because I always wondered, what would full flight do for this game?
Accidentally to the Expeditions update No Man's Sky, and it is pretty amazing. So before I jump into it, I just want to give credit where credit is due. I was over on the No Man's Sky subreddit, the actual Reddit for No Man's Sky, and a user named Duval79 posted this. Duval79 posted this, and it is pretty epic. So
yeah, the melee has physics to it, and it makes it really good.
And then I'll show you how to do it. Oh my god.
Yep.
So,
And you go lunging on a melee. Swing, 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 swing. Yep.
I am just like
Genius.
Rocket Man.
Genius.
Let's see how far I can get away from my base that I was just at.
Oh my god. See, this is what this. Ooh,
Just
no.
smashed into that mountain.
Yeah, but you didn't die.
6 minutes in like
Now, let's look at the crappy excuse for a jetpack that broke Starfield. It broke the game. It is the only issue with Starfield. I can boil it down, all of it. Starfield was a good game if you fixed the jetpack. Lets you use it in the cities, and the jetpack was Starfield, and they fucked it up. The worst they've ever fucked anything up.
Never be attained using procedural generation tools. I mean, if I asked you to tell me what this planet is, could you actually do it? Could you tell me where I am right now?
No.
Could you tell me where this base is? When one of my
No.
map markers is a small pond with 5 spiders, and the next one is a big rock with 4 spiders to kill, I wonder what I'm doing trekking around this planet.
Yeah, and why are you walking? You have a jetpack. Oh, right, the jetpack fucking broke the game. Yeah. Remember how they added the horse to Elden Ring? And it's still too slow? This game doesn't even have that. I mean, this game has fast travel, but that's not superior. Look at this 3-second audio delay they've got on non-premium now. That is disgusting, man.
Yet again, forever
What
in
the
search of
fuck?
something special. And the truth is, I found some cool-looking trees in Starfield and some nice skyboxes,
Yep, and some
but I never
empty
found
land.
that place. I consider Starfield a
BRB.
pretty decent game, but it's not the masterpiece I was hoping for. I have a lot of issues with this game, and my main one is that Starfield is not fun to explore, and it's just too damn big for its own good. When I first pulled up the star map and I saw that I could visit 1,000 planets, I knew instantly that it was going to do more harm than good. It seems like the video game industry is still in a rat race to make the biggest game possible, but I think we're beginning to realize that at a certain point, scale becomes detrimental because there's no way to fill it with unique content. It's like No Man's Sky didn't happen or something and companies still don't get it. Because to get that kind of scale, you must rely on procedural generation. That will get you scale, but you'll never get density. After all, when everything is unique, nothing is unique. Ultimately, Starfield's world feels artificial, universal, exhausting, void of soul, and far more empty than it should be. And for someone who was deeply looking forward to this game, it was a huge blow to my excitement. What's really shocking about the random number system is that little if any effort, it seems, was made post-launch randomization. Why wasn't the first priority of this game design team to manually go in to each map after it's been generated by the computer and then do their magic? You know, tweak the layouts, add unique characters.
Why not do hand-drawn first and then AI?
Generally make each planet its own special place. This is one of the weak points of Starfield, and yet it wasn't even possible to begin with due to the decision of having so many planets, because no team on Earth has the manpower to make
Canada
1,000
Dry.
planets unique. If I gave you the option to make one game with 1,000 random planets, that's, let's say,
Would you take
10% of players would visit,
$1,001 blowjobs or one
let's
$1,000
say
blowjob?
5% of their player base would visit. Which would you choose?
One $1,000
Sure,
one.
if you said 10, you'd give up some exploration, but would you? If I took 10 planets and I made them all unique versus 1,000 where they're not unique, which game would have more immersive exploration? The point isn't
The
that-
1,000 blowjob metaphor sits. It works. Would you rather have 1,000 bad $1 blowjobs or one golden $1,000 blowjob? And you get what's wrong with procedural generation. I also have another thing about this. I technically do believe that Valheim is the greatest game ever made right now. If it had more than 5 mobs. And I think procedural has been done right. Except for the mobs. I don't know why AI can't produce 400 critters and you just make them bigger and turn them into monsters and write their skill sets and stuff. And I don't know why we don't have like 400 different mobs in every RPG. It seems like something that the computer could actually do fairly well, would be populating the world with like bots of mobs that have random abilities that don't always even maybe compute to the overall experience. Like maybe this particular snail not only leaves a purple snail trail, but he also can see in the dark, so you can't sneak up on him at night or whatever, something like that, right? That particular one. The AI can make each mob particularly RNG and different, like Final Fantasy 11. Final Fantasy 11, you'll notice there's a system here, which a lot of games use, the check system or a con system, where you get like a readout on its relation to what its level is to you, and what your likelihood is to win with your current eye level of gear and your armor and your attack and your abilities and all this. And so this Clipper, despite it being level 25, which is literally 12 levels lower than me, he's still considered easy prey, and he still will give XP because he's random. You can see some of the parameters here. If we look at check param, you'll see some of the deeper parameters of like my character, like. Now, or I'm sorry, is it one word? It's been so long since I've used this. No, it doesn't seem to be. Is it check param? I can't remember. It's been so long since I've done this. It's like param or something. I forget. But anyways, each mob has a random set of stats, a random level, and a random evasion and defense rating. And so no mob in Final Fantasy 11 has ever been the same, except for the same iterations can occur many, many times. Like this is a crab that's level 25 with low evasion and low defense. And that's actually a fairly common outcome when you examine crabs. You're going to see that over here. It's the same crab essentially. It's going to give you the same exact fight, right? They're the same crab essentially, but not really. Its crit is different. Its armor is always different. Some of them might be the same level. One might be roided because it's got evasion. One doesn't. And all this. And this is an example of tech that we've had since 2003 that randomizes mobs in a way where all you really need is skins. You don't need, you need skins, and you need what the ability set is of the mob. And that's hard. Like figuring out what the mob does is really hard. It's a hard creative process, and what the mob's capable of in relationship to the player and all the balance and everything. That part of it's very hard. But I don't know why our bestiaries and our RPGs are not as diverse as they should be. And I think Valheim could have taken the crown as the greatest game of all time, even above Elden Ring. I really do believe this. If there wasn't only 5 mobs in the game, if Coffee Stain had added the level of mob diversity that like even Final Fantasy 11 has, you'd be looking at the greatest RPG of all time. But because it always feels like you're fighting the same trogs and the same boars and the same giants and the same skeletons, there's this core gameplay loop that's missing from the game that kills people's immersion and desire to come back very much, because they're like, well, I know what I'm going to find in this dungeon is skeletons. I know what I'm going to find in the forest. It's trolls. I know what I'm going to find, like there's no sensible exploration when it comes to the combat because it's always the same 5 mobs. And after I realized that it was always the same 5 mobs, it was very easy for me to leave Valheim. And this is true of mobs. It's true of maps. It's true of characters. It's true of classes. Yeah, I mean, it's like diversity. They spent a lot of time on mocap and story and graphics and god rays and all that, but I want diversity in the gameplay loops, the maps, the mobs, the actual original video game coding that made video games fun, like in the Super Nintendo era. It's the same stuff that we do today, just like, you know, amalgamated in an MMO. So the gameplay loops were always fun, but like the fact that there's only always the same 5 mobs, that is very disheartening for the immersion. It's very hard to get immersed when you're like, I know what I'm going to see in my 12-hour like Valheim session today. I know I'm going to see some skeletons. I know I'm going to see a troll. I know I'm going to see boars and deer. And that's it. Mortal suffers from this. I mean, Final Fantasy doesn't suffer from this because they have like 17 Final Fantasy games to fall back on when it comes to their bestiary. But what they don't have, and they have procedural down really well. So you couldn't ever fault Final Fantasy for not having like one of the best bestiaries, if not the best in the industry. But I mean, it took them 20 games to get to that point. And like, this is a problem with modern new RPG creators who haven't been around that long, like New World suffer from really one and the sameness when it came to the mobs pretty badly. Not totally. It definitely had better mob differentiation than a lot of MMOs, but it still wasn't good enough, you know, still the same skeletons in the end. And I look at problems like that, and I think that the AI could fix it. Not only could the AI randomize the size and the feel of the mobs, it could randomize the color and the shading of every mob. It could randomize the skill sets of the mobs and keep it balanced too. It could do a lot of things that I don't think they're using it to do. They're using it to make levels. I don't want it to make levels or maps. I want you guys to do that. I want it to make the mobs feel like I'm in an ocean, like Finding Nemo, where there's more fish in the sea than I have years of my life to discover or whatever. There's literally a better version of Final Fantasy XI would be, in this zone is 100 different mob types and 100 different mob sizes and 100 different mob colors and 100 different mob skill sets, and they very little, right? The skill set's very little, but everything else is very random. And so instead of the same black cat that I've been fighting for 17 fucking years in the same old bullshit skin, they could use the AI to fix some of the homologous, right, is the correct usage, homologous natures of these procedurally generated games. Deep Rock Galactic suffer from this. Valheim suffer from it. Risk of Rain 2. And one of the reasons why I can't do random sandboxes, Eve suffers from it really bad. It's always the same 5 classes of ships from the same 3 races. You get really bored of it after a bit. The diversity in the gameplay loops is not where you apply the AI, but I think that's where it's best used. And instead you dump all your money on mocap and crappy CGI scenes that we don't need, and stories that don't motivate us, and all this other shit that is just like shit, you know, shit and shinola. You can polish a turd, but it's still really boring gameplay loops and stories that I don't care about. And so I look at this broken ass jetpack, and I think even the AI could do some work there. The AI could have made an attempt to improve this jetpack. It built a system for it that might actually be fun to use, like what we're seeing here. Like, I don't care what you say about how bullshit this jetpack depiction is. It still looks fun to use. Excuse me. It still looks fun to use compared to, Starfield.
15 seconds? Look at that! That's my base. That's where I was right there. Oh my god! Alright, so if you want to go through and melee jump like super rocket.
I figured this out the last time I played No Man's Sky. I actually figured it out. I was like, oh, the melee has physics? Well, then does it affect the jetpack? And it did. And I was like, oh, well, cool. That's way better. But it wasn't mind-blowing to me like it was for this kid, I think. They're so used to running out of jetpack juice that they're not really, like, the idea of a free jetpack is kind of mind-blowing to them. And it is to me, too. Now watch him fly to this mesa and outdo Starfield by 1 billion.
Like, this is the most amazing thing that I've ever seen. All right, so
yeah, do it again.
Doing this is you have to get up in the air just a little bit.
Yeah,
so use your jetpack,
upwards
whatever button that is. That's
propulsion.
A
yeah.
on a console or on Xbox, X if you're on PS4 or PlayStation, or if you're on PC, use your space bar, jump up, and while you're in midair, you're gonna push forward.
And then
on
melee.
Your thumbstick, so you're walking forward. You're gonna walk forward in your punch, right? But then you're gonna stop. You see, in Expeditions, they actually made it to where if you hold down the punch button, it keeps punching, and that is what lets this happen. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hold down your punch and you hold down forward while you're in the air, and you just keep tapping your jetpack button, just keep tapping your jetpack button. So that's A if you're on Xbox, X if you're on PlayStation, or tap your space bar if you're on a PC. But watch this. So go up in the air just a little bit, just get enough air, and then hold forward and punch, and keep tapping that jetpack. Oh, look at this! Look at that!
I discovered this immediately.
How fast you could go.
And it blew my mind, but I was also like, the fall damage is restrictive at the beginning of the game. I was like, this is useful, kind of, but you can't take a hit when you land, so because you don't have a suit like he has. So I was like, yeah, it's useful when if I ever were to play the game long enough to have a good suit, but I wasn't able to do that. This is another game, No Man's Sky, that definitely had a better approach to the mobs, but still wasn't good enough.
It's gonna work better if you have more
like the mobs were very homologous.
Upgrades for your jetpack. So as you can see, I have a ton, and I have even more over here. I have a ton of upgrades, but you don't need it that way. You don't need all these upgrades. It just makes it better because you can use your backpack, your jetpack for longer. But you don't need all of them.
You don't need it.
Helps though, but watch this. Just hold it, get up in the air, and then hold forward in your punch, and just keep tapping. Look at this.
Until you high-speed impact.
It's just tapping it. Oh my god, it's so good. You're just covering tons of distance. That is insane, you guys.
And you get an idea of how really bad the goddamn worthless-ass Starfield kill-a-game jetpack actually is. I lay all of the problems of Starfield on that jetpack. I think that's why I said, oh, in 5 years, the modders might actually fix the jetpack somehow. I don't think you can ever, like, rewire forward propulsion to that jetpack because they didn't put it in the game. So I don't know if they're ever going to be able to fix that jetpack, but I can tell you how you fix Starfield, and it's the jetpack. Well, two things. You fill the world with enough interesting mobs and enough interesting combat, which the modders can probably do as well, that that the jetpack becomes really important. And then suddenly you have the looter shooter with 1,000 planets that never ends, that has all the content and the combat that you wanted, and the travel isn't terrible, and the only load screen you ever do is when you leave or leave the planet or whatever. That's it. I don't think you can fix the space combat. I didn't think the space combat was good at all. I thought it was terrible.
The point is to create unique, dense worlds that foster immersive gameplay.
Yeah, so you're still going to do these load screens, but when you have the jetpack, you don't have to as much because you don't have to fast travel as much. If the jetpack actually worked the way that No Man's Sky jetpack just did, like, you wouldn't need as much load screens at all. A lot of people would probably just fly if they're on the planet anyways. A lot of people would just, load the, would just like take the jetpack in lieu of a loading screen most of the time anyways, Like, I found myself fast traveling out of the shopkeepers' places just to get out of there. And that's bullshit. But if I had a good jetpack, I would just fly back to my ship in 10 seconds and consider it a fun experience in this massive, massive world that you put flight in, but then limited to 5 feet off the ground for some reason. And it's weird. You're never going to see another fanboy ever even talk about this. But I believe I'm right. I believe there's one core problem with this game that you could boil it down to, and it's that jetpack.
Thus, the game should not have only been more dense, but it also should have been...
No, it didn't need anything else. It's actually fairly good. It needs two things. It needs a lot more mob variety in terms of like just size and numbers. And the mob AI was insufficient, and I'm not sure the modders can fix that, so you fucked us on that. So that's a lost cause. But if you can fix the forward propulsion of the jetpack somehow, which I don't believe you could... you could still save the game and make the game significantly more fun. If you were to turn it into a planet-based, like, looter shooter that kind of feels like a more combat-based Death Stranding mixed with No Man's Sky, you have a good game, like a 9.2 maybe, like I originally scored it. But until then, until you fix the jetpack and you make the mobs fun enough and that chart was not good. That chart was horseshit. The chart was not inspired. It was not well written. It was base. It was about stealing power back that you should have just had anyways. Like earning your power back, essentially. Like even the jetpack, you have to spend a point to get it. Why would you ever go into space without a jetpack, apparently? I mean, I don't know. When I think of interstellar travel and getting stranded on some fucking planet with low G, the willingness to do so without a jetpack is zero. I'd rather stay on terra firma at that point. No, like, I'm not going out doing Starfield without a Rocketeer jetpack. I'm just not doing that. That's what No Man's Sky did. I mean, it makes sense, too. Why would you ever do planetary exploration without some personal mode of convenience, either a Jetson's personal spaceship that's like the size of a bicycle, you know, like the Leroy rode around in or whatever, or a jetpack, one or the other. Otherwise, planetary exploration on a solo level is so unrealistic that it's just not something I can even believe that they attempted to try to do. And after watching Interstellar and watching No Man's Sky and even some other games like Tribes even do it 10 years before, 10 times better, was like, why did you cripple your game with this terrible jetpack?
Drunk as a whole.
This jetpack could have been so good. You could have flown across the ground like Zone of the Enders and skated like Ice Skater, like an Ice Skater. You could just like have that jetpack shoot flames out that push you forward, and you could skate on the ground like a Naruto run, right? There's all this cool stuff they could have done with the jetpack. Instead, they just jacked off and wasted our fucking time and broke the game. I would never willingly Starfield without the No Man's Sky jetpack. I would just never do it. I'd be like, no, I'm not leaving Earth. You can go fuck yourself. You go explore. I'll stay here, you know, where the jetpacks work. Because otherwise, I'm not doing solo planetary exploration without either a fucking like a straight up like X-wing, or a fucking and an R2D2 to look out for me if I'm like trapped on the surface or something like that, or like a jetpack like they've always depicted in sci-fi, you know, like they've always depicted that fucking, that, you know, even in, I think there's even a jetpack in Aliens if I recall, like this thing that you did in Starfield with that jetpack is a serious disappointment.
Number system should have only been used.
This game's only issue was the jetpack, in my opinion. All the rest of it could be fixed by modders. Either there's only two core problems with it. The jetpack was not written the right way, so they can't fix it. And the mob AI was not written, so they can't fix it. And that's always the worst tragedy for modders, when it's just not in the game, you know? The jetpack move, like shooting you across the ground, the physics are in the game, but they didn't write the jetpack to do that. So maybe the modders can fix it. They can fix the power of the jetpack and how long you can use it. So you can absolutely Neo fly into the air. The modders can provide that. But the modders can't make Starfield jetpack into No Man's Sky jetpack. They didn't write the game that way. And so, yeah. Maybe I'm holding out for 5 years for something that I believed that the modders could fix somehow.
To set the initial parameters before the game designer.
So let's go look, I guess. Let's go look. Starfield jetpacks. Jetpack mod. Jetpack overhaul mod. Okay, looks like somebody did fix it.
Flying jetpack is one of the mods that we really need in Starfield. It makes all the jetpacks flyable. Now it's not only used to jump.
Now notice it struggles with forward movement because they didn't write it in the game. But it looks like the modders did fix Starfield. With the jetpack, game's fine. Game's great. This is not good enough. You needed about another 10 times the power that he's got the mod set at before this becomes good. But if you speed that jetpack up a bunch so it starts to feel like the Tribes game that I showed you, you have a good game.
Now you can fly to far places.
Yeah.
Because your jetpack no longer consume anything. Now,
never mind. The modders did fix the game. They fixed it.
Open the mod page.
Yep.
To 5.
They fixed the game. Yeah, so I knew it. So the game had 2 core issues: the mob AI, the lack of mob AI, the lack of mob diversity, the fact that the planets were empty when you could just spawn mobs, and that doesn't really make sense. And I mean, there was mobs and it wasn't empty, but it wasn't good enough. And if you were to turn this game into a Borderlands form-esque looter shooter, where all the mobs drop like guns and stuff like that, so you could like truly mess with the greatest system in Starfield, which is that gun creation system they did, and you have a good game. But you would need this jetpack mod, and done better than this too. Done better than what he's showing in this mod. You need it better than this, and you would need like a way to populate the worlds with enough random mobs that it feels like an MMO. And then you make the jetpacks so that you can fly across the planet in 2 minutes, right? And you fix the damage, and you fix the mob AI, and you populate the fucking planets, and you somehow provide some overall XP system, and you fix the perks and the chart like Ordinator did for Skyrim, you have a good game. Like a really good game. Like a game better than Skyrim. Like, well, I don't know about better than Skyrim, because Skyrim had a lot of good story to it and Starfield doesn't. But you have a more fun game than Skyrim. And yeah, if you were to turn Starfield into Tribes mixed with Borderlands, you have a good game. And I believe that is possible from what I just saw. Well, at least the jetpack part of it. Don't know if the mob AI part is possible, but I have seen them work wonders with mob AI before. I can show you an example of it, even. If I were to run across my Skyrim world right now, which I believe I can do on a fairly short notice. Let's see if it requires anything that I can't do or anything. But I believe I can fire up my Skyrim right now and show you what I'm talking about, because I have a character that can run really fucking fast, so I won't take any battles. But I'll show you what a modded Skyrim mod experience with full-blown lack of mobility issues actually looks like. It's a really fucking fun game. Now, Skyrim doesn't seem to want to load, which is bad news. Oh, no, there we go, there we And I don't know. It's been a while since I ran this client, so I don't know if there's anything I was doing in particular that I don't remember. And plus, it appears that it's stuck in window mode, which might serve for our purposes, but it's also just stuck loading mods, which makes no sense. This game doesn't usually do that. There we go. So let's continue and hope that this is enough to illustrate what I'm talking about. I don't think it is. I'll have to fix it, and I don't even know. Fixing that might be a pain in the fucking ass. I don't know, man. I don't think I can. So whatever. I loaded the game, though. So when you see what modders have done in terms of mob bestiaries and mob diversity and mob size and stuff in Skyrim, you begin to see what is possible in Starfield. And what I told my friend Bagon when he asked me what my final rating for Starfield was, I told him 9.2, and he was like, "You are fucking crazy. This game is not a 9.2. And I was like, yes, it is. Because when Starfield in 5 years has the sort of mods that this game has... I'm in Markarth for some reason. Oh, damn it. Anyways, you guys can't see this very well, so I'm not going to do this very long. But see how fast she moves, right? So all the problems about mobility in Skyrim are just gone for me. Oh, crash. Sorry. That's something going on with that. But anyways. Yeah, I think I've got that wrong resolution will cause a crash, I believe. Yeah. And outside in the world, which is what I wanted to show you, but I haven't played the client in so long, I don't know what I need to do to fix it to the point where I can show you that. Until I take a look at it, is all the monster mods that I installed have turned Skyrim into Diablo, and the world is populated like Diablo, and the mobs die like Diablo, and your team is like Guild Wars 1, and they kill things, and they kill it well, and they have good AI. And they don't fuck up, and they heal you and shit, and I mean, they're actually really good. So, and this is because of the modders, not because of Bethesda, right? So, now Skyrim is 10 times as fun as it used to be, but now I'm just sort of bored of Skyrim, right? I'm not bored of Starfield. I just don't think Starfield is good yet till they fix the jetpack and the mobs. Now, when I go to look at the Nexus page on Starfield, I always kind of despair, because it appears that the modders did not take on this battle, not in a real and verifiable way, at least not yet. We see ports of mods from previous games. All of these. All of them. Every single one of these are all ported mods from previous Bethesda games. None of them are new. All of this, and one of the things about this is Starfield was a fairly DRM game. You have to have the internet for it, so it suffers from the same problems as 76 does in terms of its mods, and so it can only get away with so many mods. Unlike Skyrim, that was a far more single player experience that will play offline. Excuse me. Starfield will not play offline. So, there's some issues there, but yeah, as you can see, none of these mods are even remotely groundbreaking or new, and it appears that the modding community has abandoned Starfield in general. Now, this is a popular combat AI mod, and it's what I came to look for. Starfield NPCs oftentimes just stand around contemplating their next move. With this mod, NPCs will be more active and will act more intelligently. It's all he really did was fix the bug in the code that made them stand around and do nothing, and that's something they've been doing for Bethesda games for 20 years. So NPCs are more inclined to shoot their weapons. They'll fire from cover, and all he did was adjust and tweak settings on the mobs. That's it. There's nothing new here. They'll fire from cover and change their positions more frequently because he set them differently. Reduced NPC reaction and idle times. He's just tuning little dials on the mobs. So this is a step in the right direction, but this is something Bethesda should have done themselves anyways. And on top of it, it's not new, and it has no content to the game. It doesn't make it a better game. The jetpack overhaul is popular, but it was not adopted by the community, or it would be in the top 10. Fixing the game was the top 10. You know, the first page is entirely mods based around fixing the game. That's it. Neutral loots, like some people didn't like the colors of the game. Some people don't like the intros. Some people don't like the menu delay. Some people don't like the reticles. Some people don't like the lock picking. Some people don't like that the DLSS didn't fucking work, so the games had the game had terrible frames. Some people didn't like that you couldn't have achievements when you were modding the game when you had to fix the game with mods. Like in order to get to even get DLSS to work, you had to mod the game. This invalidates your saves. So the achievement enabler that's always popular is of course popular, and Bethesda really hates this one. They really hate that one. Better HUD, immersive and dynamic, user configurable, is an old mod, but it's a great one. And the effects and textures needed to be improved for the expensive boys who have $10,000 rigs, so they fixed that. Here's the initial groundwork to make an unofficial patch that eventually fixes all the game's like core under the hood problems. And you see that fixing the game is the majority of all the popular mods. So the modder scene has abandoned this game, but they shouldn't, because when you see that you can fix the jetpack and you can maybe tune the AI mobs enough to produce a Diablo shooter out of Starfield, a Borderlands shooter out of Starfield with a neat campaign attached that you can mod and add stuff to and change and do different origin stories and start on different planets like all the other Bethesda games and all this crazy stuff. And you do have a 9. But, you know, going to be a long time before we reach that. It's going to be some years, I think. Let's watch the jetpack in action again, because the idea of flying to the top of that building is really cool to me. And it was really an affront to me that Bethesda did not enable us to do so. What's the point of a space travel game if you don't even have a jetpack? I got to ask you, if you can't master a jetpack for like non-interplanetary travel, why would I ever bother making a starship, you know?
The game to close it.
And that's that whole why bother thing that doesn't have to do with art. This one has to do with design choices, both in the real world and in the game. You would never go design an X-Wing before you had mastered Rocketeer. You guys ever seen that Disney movie Rocketeer? It's every kid's dream to have that kind of jetpack. It's better than the hoverboard from Back to the Future. You know what I'm saying? The Rocketeer is everybody's dream. And, you know, we can fly like humans who can fly like birds. It's this beautiful dream. I really believe in it, you know? And so why the fuck would we have this crazy ship that you fly around in, but not a dependable jetpack? And that's that whole, like, why bother thing, but not because of art. It's because of, like, you know, or design. It's because you don't know how to design well anymore, Bethesda. Or the jetpack would have been blaringly obvious to you, like it is to me.
Here, but what? Well, it's written on the description of the mod. This is it. Add jetpack. You can select it and copy it, then paste it on console command.
They really don't want you doing this.
Ctrl+V.
You have to mod the console to even make the mod work. They don't want you doing this. They don't want you unlocking their games and proving to the world how really lazy they are. Right? With a simple console mod, you can completely unlock Starfield. Bethesda doesn't want you knowing this. It's bad for their PR.
Finally, hit enter. And done. You can close the console command.
Cool.
And to use it correctly, you need to bind an alternate key for jumping. Left alt recommended. Now by holding the alternate jump key, you will activate a forward boost. If you don't add
Ooh.
it, you're just gonna go up, not forward. And to go
And that's how they did it. They modified jump to happen while you're using the jetpack. And that's how they got the forward propulsion, because Bethesda did not make forward propulsion. So they had to use a jump animation to get what they wanted, which is frankly fucking sad. 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 It's just sad.
Alternate key for jumping, or it's going to go up as well. And to delete the mods, just delete the files that we extract.
Yep, and it's really sad that you have to console that. I'm sorry, but it is. It's fucking sad. Okay, so we got the jetpack thing across. Let's get off it.
Secondly, because the game is so large, Starfield is forced to provide lucrative, fast travel options for the player to travel inconceivable distances and quantities of systems. This, in turn, causes many issues, such as the overabundance of loading screens and menu-based system traveling. But even more so, all the menu flicking and interruptions create breaks and immersion, so it's hard to get sucked into it when you're pulled out of whatever you're doing every 10 seconds. Starfield is not a game about wandering the cosmos. It has no flow to it. It's a segmented, disjointed mess of teleportation. And one of the biggest frustrations playing Starfield is this feeling that you're in menus all the time and watching loading screens for so much more of your time than you actually want to be. Combined with the egregious dry conversation system and a real lack of any actual handcrafted cutscenes, Starfield can be a very tedious and irritating experience. When you have 1,000 planets made using RNG, you also forego some really cool features like planet-side flying, flying between planets or out into space, or the ability to take off, land on a planet, or enter orbit manually. One of the things I remember the most is my first flight in Starfield. I was amazed, yet disheartened at the same time, seeing this big beautiful planet directly in front of me, yet no way to fly to it or anywhere around it. Thirdly, all survivor elements were instantly doomed, because the game isn't handcrafted. If you take a look at Starfield's map, you'll realize that most, if not all, the game's major cities, in fact all the cities, they're located on the planets bordering the left side. As you work your way left,
I did notice that.
Less cities become available, and planet levels rise dramatically. At the furthest eastern edge, you will find the highest level systems at around level 75. In order to get around the universe, the player uses what is called grav drive fuel. However, fuel doesn't act like fuel in Starfield. You don't actually spend fuel. Fuel isn't a resource. It's been dumbed down for the sake of scale. If you have enough range on your grav drive, you can simply jump and nothing is consumed. For example, if I jump across the universe from the Huygens system to, let's say, Ariane A1, it's a simple matter of clicking jump with my mouse. I see some loading screens, and I arrive in orbits at an imaginary cost of 162.9 fuel. If I want to go back to Huygens 3, I simply scroll to the right and teleport by clicking, yet again, another button. Another 162.9 of fuel. Yet, no fuel is actually consumed in the process. What this means is that fuel is irrelevant, and this impacts pretty much everything about Starfield's exploration, turning the game into a menu-clicking, loading screen simulator. You can imagine Starfield at some point was envisioned for you to move across its map slowly, consuming fuel and refueling at shipyards along your way. In this world, outposts were essential, allowing you to build landing pads on remote planets and refuel without the need to stop at a major city. Outposts then would act as your lifeline, tethering you to a range at which you could explore those far reaches. Outposts have been depressingly downgraded from Fallouts and are very buggy, but I guess that's beside the point. The point is, over time, you would build your guideline into the unknown with the use of these outposts. And if you can afford a new grav drive, that would extend your range, allowing you to make it a little bit further out into space. This all goes out the window, however, when fuel does not act like a resource. Truth be told, if I was a director of game design and I built something new for a game, I would first ask the question if it was actually fun. Would fuel actually make for a fun gameplay system?
No.
Or would it be a complete and utter nightmare?
Yep.
You can imagine building an idea into a game that sounds good, but perhaps...
Is fuel fun in real life? No. I don't know why it's such a core gameplay mechanic all the time. It's not fun to gas up your car. It's stupid. I mean, we have to do it, but it's not something that I look forward to doing. Like a gameplay loop is fun, you know.
Isn't fun during playtesting. Maybe Starfield as...
I don't find inventory management fun. I think it should be done by an algorithm, and I think it shouldn't ever even be ever limited. I know that sounds crazy, but if it's my client on my drive, I want to store my loot on my drive, and I don't think there should be inventory like loot space thing. Maybe in like MMOs, yeah, but in single player games that I bought, I don't know, man. I think it's my space, and if I want endless space in Skyrim, then I'll have that. I don't, you know, like, I don't know. I don't agree with your gameplay loop when it comes to that. Not at all.
Is more fun and would be worse off embracing realistic survival elements like fuel, food, hydration, climate, medical, and so on.
Aggro.
Fallout New Vegas's hardcore survival
Resisted the
elements could have
pickpocket.
been reproduced with better planning, but I guess again that's beside the point. So I don't blame Starfield for instead turning into a science fiction RPG if Star Survival wasn't fun. But why even tease us with these systems if they mean literally nothing? They're half-baked like a lot of things in Starfield. Starfield feels bittersweet because the scope of the game belies its substance. Because at first, the game does feel like it has unlimited potential. Yeah, the introduction of the game is pretty bad, but seeing a massive star system full of possibilities and being able to go anywhere you want is tantalizing stuff. Because you do wonder what you could find. You do wonder about the possibilities, the stories and the people and the things that you would find and you could find. But in the end, you never really find them. You might discover a system that has a planet, that has a small cave with a dead body, with a small node. You might run into a building that has a file regaling the experience of a scientist that was here 9 years ago, leading to, at best, the tiniest slice of actual gameplay. Maybe the planets I skipped had that epic quest I was looking for and that endless adventure I was searching for, but I highly doubt it. Starfield has some terrific side quests. The main story is underwhelming. Talking to an NPC to mark a planet on your map that has an artifact on it, just so you can hit a button in the menu and warp straight to it, is fucking lame. But it goes above and beyond with its factions. The Vanguard quest is very, very good and extremely detailed. Sure, the minutia is a bit dry, like many things in Starfield. Talk to born character, fast travel here, pick up item, and fast travel back. Yes, it's not very exciting. And I don't feel very much emotion to a game that is so fragmented, but the scale of those large quests and the climaxes were truly great. And having been the first thing I did in Starfield, I was shocked that 8 hours went by and I was still playing this one quest. I guess that's Starfield's biggest strength, the ability to kind of go out and do whatever you want. But ironically, it almost ruined my experience because everything thereafter was definitely worse. This quest might very well be the single best piece of content in Starfield. But outside factions, Starfield doesn't provide you with a reason to be that explorer. Every planet is very interchangeable, replaceable, and generic. Again, if nothing is unique, then why didn't they just make 10 planets? I can only speak for myself, but I have to believe most people would prefer a smaller, dense world versus a larger, more shallow one. And I think 10 planets stuffed to the brim with stories and characters and epic quests and events and large outposts and cities with unique weather and discovery, that would have been the sweet spot for me. This would have made the game so much better and actually made some of the more pointless features like food and medical and hydration and environmental hazards actually relevant. Hell, even if they had 100 planets, that would have been 10 times better, allowing the procedural generation system to create the framework of those planets and then having the designers go in and build upon them again. It just seems like a good idea. Ultimately, at least in regards to immersive exploration, Starfield is an ocean, yet its depth is very low. It has occasional glimpses of engaging places, but because of the procedural generation system and the immersion breaking, it ultimately feels like you're visiting a set of levels rather than exploring an open world. And without it being immersive, that is a massive step backwards. Part 2. Gameplay, mechanics, features, shipbuilding, and ship combat.
Aggro. Aggro.
That game sucks.
Aggro. Aggro.
I'm out of throwing axes, damn it. I'll have to hearth
I
back.
understand the mechanics.
I forgot to
Cyberpunk
set my
wouldn't fit into a game like
hearth.
Starfield. Being
I better
able to bounce
go
around and do
to the
crazy
town.
parkour isn't exactly fitting for this
Annoying.
world. Starfield slow, Cyberpunk fast.
They're taking
I get
all
it,
the mobs
but here's the
anyways.
point. The mechanics themselves are irrelevant. It's the fact that the game provides its own unique mechanics. Mechanics that the player can use to express their own creativity.
Aggro.
In other words, game mechanics are the player's options. Obviously, though, game mechanics are nothing on their own. Throwing in a dash into a game without making sure it gels with the rest of the movement options would certainly be bad. So you could say both mechanics and their integration are of almost equal importance. Let's take a look at just one mechanic from Cyberpunk 2077 to demonstrate this, and then we'll look at how Starfield implements a
Aggro.
much smaller amount of gameplay mechanics. We could look at the dash, which offers a wealth of movement options both from the ground and in the air, and we could talk about how it melds with the parkour and the sliding and the jumping tools that V has. But I think it's very obvious how well crafted this dash is, just given how good it looks and feels and how you could do all sorts of crazy acrobatics with it. So instead, let's look at the very elusive air takedown mechanic. Why is the air takedown in Cyberpunk a good mechanic, and how does this relate to Starfield? So the air takedown in Cyberpunk is exactly what it sounds like. V jumps on a bad guy and smashes his face into the ground. It actually looks really sick. The thing with the air takedown, though, is it can only be used from stealth and requires the player to be out of combat and at the correct distance above their target. This is an important requirement, as it means it's up to the player's skill whether they're able to utilize this feature. But most importantly, there's a natural meshing with the other movement options V has, such as jumping and dodging, which link directly and automatically into air
Aggro.
takedowns. For example, you can jump off a building, dash...
Why would you
jump
need all this in a single player game against crappy mobs?
enemy,